freaky friends. This is Margaret.
This is Colleen.
And we're
the Cousins Weird.
Hi. And this is our special Halloween edition episode.
Ooh.
Hopefully you're in the mood and you're out getting trick-or-treating or you're partying or you're being safe. Don't drink and drive. Don't text and drive. You know, all that above.
Hold your kid's hand when you cross the street.
Yes. Hold your kid's hand when you cross the street. Even if you're not crossing the street, hold their hand.
Because if you listen to our History of Halloween episode, you learn that children die twice as often by cars on Halloween than any other night. So hold your child's hand.
Please.
Yes.
More deaths by
automobile
than by razors in the candy.
Yeah, no razors in the candies.
0.
Yeah. We're in the pod. We're on a different day recording, so it's weird. This is odd.
It's at night.
Yeah.
Because it's a busy time of year for us, and I have a sick child again, and my day has been, basically, I've been in the car all day. I drove to work, then I drove home. Then I drove to school for a Halloween parade, and then I drove home. And then, after my middle child got off the bus, I brought her up to my parents' house, and then I drove my youngest kid to the doctor, and then I drove home. And then I drove back into town to pick up my son from his job. Then I drove home, and then I picked Colleen up, and I came here.
Then she had to drive, pick me up, and then come here to my parents' house, which is where our pod lab is located.
And so, I'm done with my car. I'm just gonna go burn it. Like, I spent more time in the car today than I did out of the car. This kid with a fever, and I'm like, my youngest one has had more fevers in the past year than I have in my whole entire life, I think.
She's just everything. She gets everything.
Yeah, I think it's the pandemic baby syndrome.
Yeah, it's that whole being quarantined for so long, your immune system sucks.
Yeah, she's 5, and I mean, she always has been prone to fevers. Like, she'd teeth and she'd get a fever. And she'll get a fever and then it'll go away and she'll be fine. And it won't even be like a cold. It'll just be like this
very
weird,
sensitive all the way around.
Yeah, she's my sensitive one.
She's got a sensitive heart, sensitive body.
My empathic child. Yeah. She's
Maybe
the one
all
who
it is.
It's like she knows when I'm feeling stressed out. Mommy, I just need to give you a hug. My heart just melted into a puddle on the floor. So,
I was gonna say something. What was I gonna say? I don't remember. So, today at my job we had a special Halloween lunch. We all brought in something for it, like Halloween themed. It was fun. We had a lot of good treats, and then that's all I was gonna say.
Food is good.
What are we having to drink this evening? Well, it has something to do with what we're gonna talk about.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm doing this.
It is the delicious, unique, one-of-a-kind cider from our local cider mill, Burrville Cider Mill.
Yes.
And
if you're local, you know there's no other game.
You know.
Anywhere.
And if you are within a 60-mile radius, you need to come here. You need to go to the cider mill.
If you're within, I'd say, 150-mile radius. I don't even push it out there.
It's like, unlike any cider I've ever had anywhere else. It's just so good. It's like fresh apples. It's so not...
And my mouth is watering.
I don't think they heat it. They pasteurize it in a different way, but it's not heated, so it retains that, like, fresh integrity of an apple. So when you drink it, it doesn't taste like apple juice that's not filtered. It tastes like apples.
Yeah,
it's like,
and I don't like apple juice.
I don't either, but cider is like its own. It's
so
like
good.
So good. It's so good. And they make donuts with the cider, and you get in there, and they're warm, and they're crispy on the outside, and they just melt in your mouth. And
nothing is better than when the cider mill opens, go in there and having your first donut of the season.
Oh my god, it's so good. And then driving home, but there's like sugar all over me.
And it's everywhere.
It's in your bra. It's in your shoes.
Good.
It's like so good though. Oh my god, it's
worth the drive.
And you say, I'm only going to buy one. No. Well, actually, it's safe to buy just one because you'll eat it and then you'll be licking your fingers off for 15 minutes.
If I get a dozen and my husband is with me, 6 of them are gone before we're home. And I'm not exaggerating.
No.
I'll have one. He'll have the other 5. So, and then I'm like, can we save some for other times, please? And he's like, no, I must eat them all now.
But they're warm.
That's what he said. And then he has this big, lumberjack grizzly beard. And
full of cinnamon sugar.
Full of cinnamon sugar, and he doesn't care. He's thrilled. Thrilled with it.
But they're like a local business.
Yeah, they also have cider
slush.
Slush.
You can get mulled cider. It's
Mulled
hot.
cider.
You can get cider slush is so good too.
Mm-hmm.
I actually worked there for 2 seasons, so I know the ins and outs.
You got the ins and outs.
I get to make the donuts.
Margaret was the little guy from the Dunkin' Donuts commercials.
Yeah, it was. Time to make the donuts. But when I worked there, I was vegan, and I made the donuts and I didn't eat them then.
But now she made up
and
for
now that I'm not vegan, the first summer, it was like 2 years ago that I'm a vegetarian still, but my husband and I went vegan before we got married, and at our 20-year anniversary, it was 20 years of being married and 20 years of being vegan, and our 2 little kids were like, I want to eat eggs. And we're like, all right. So I cooked them eggs, and then I ate eggs. Because I've always said the whole time I was vegan, the one thing I miss more than anything else is like eggs. Like eggs for breakfast. And I eat eggs like
I can eat them I eat them almost every day.
Almost every day, yeah. But my youngest and me are the only ones that eat eggs really at home. My other 2 kids, even though they're not vegetarian, they're not vegan, they don't like eggs. No. But Ruby and I, we'll eat 4 eggs for breakfast between the 2 of us. She's fun. But yeah, I went there and I'm like, oh my god, I'm having a donut at the cider mill because
I made them for 2 years. I couldn't eat them.
I mean, you go home from work and there's like cinnamon and sugar in your bra
and
in your socks.
Yum.
And in your underwear. Seriously, I went and there was sugar in my underwear. I'm like, how did that get there? Like, seriously, I was cold the whole time.
Are you sure?
I'm positive. But yeah, it was a nice place to work. People there are great.
Maybe it was something to do with why we're talking about it. That you got sugar in your underwear.
It was only one time.
Well, that's all it takes.
Yeah, always in my bra though. Every time I go home, it's like.
I mean, just eating one, I get it in my bra. So.
It goes like 3 a shirt.
Yeah. So we were really excited when we started our podcast because one of the first things that you brought up was we really need to do the cider mill for one of our episodes, and then I was like, "You're right, we do." And since Margaret worked there, she had it in, and we got to go interview.
It's Cindy.
Yeah. And but we're going to talk all about it. But so we actually did an interview. She didn't want to be her voice on our thing,
which I wish she had because she's got such a way
she's so good at it.
Yeah, she's got a good way of speaking, and she's very personable.
She's personable and easy to talk to and funny and
yeah.
But she didn't want us to, but she was really excited about us doing it. So we're gonna
thanks, Cindy, if you're listening.
Thank you, Cindy. Thanks for they're so busy, like ridiculously busy, and she sat down with us while things were going on all around us and talked to us for like 40 minutes. So it was awesome.
She was great.
So do you want me to start about the history of
you start. I was going to tell you about the history of the sawmill itself.
Yes, and then Margaret's going to talk more about the interview we did and like her telling us the stories, and we'll kind of go back and forth between things. This is a Margaret and Colleen episode.
Yeah, we're doing
first one ever.
A tag team one.
We're tag teaming it.
We're trying it. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll probably be talking. We always talk over top of each other during it. We're always like, blah, 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 blah.
or we're cackling like hyenas or witches or whatever.
So, the now called Burrville Cider Mill was originally built as a gristmill in 1801 by Hart Massey for Silas Snow, or it's Stowe. I wrote that weird, and now I'm questioning myself.
Probably Stowe.
It's probably Stowe. In 1802, it was purchased by Captain John Burr. It was a saw and grist mill, and a grist mill is something that refines grain, grounds up grain, and the sawmill. So, Captain John Burr is where Burrville Cider Mill is in Burrville, which is the little, what is Burrville? Hamlet?
It's a little town, like, on your way from Watertown to, like, Copenhagen. Yeah. It's right there.
It's a little tiny, if you blink, you miss it kind of place. So, Burrville is named after Captain John Burr. He founded the area. The sawmill was built where it was because of the 30-foot waterfall next to the cider mill, or the mill. It is rumored, though, that this is so cool, that Captain John Burr, was a pirate on Lake Ontario. And he would steal from ships and then sell what he stole to the troop station at Sackett's Harbor. We have a lot of history up in here. The Battle of 1812 happened at Sackett's Harbor. So he was just making some money.
You know, he probably was stealing crap meant for the stuff.
Probably was originally meant for them
and
anyway.
then stealing it and then selling it back to them.
Yeah, it's really
funny.
cool, I think. It is said that Captain Burr enjoyed his drinks and he enjoyed his cigars. Now, throughout the time that John Burr had the cider mill, or the sawmill at the time, they would actually press apples for local farmers. And it was just something they did.
And the farmers would bring them the apples they grew, and they would press it into cider.
Cider for them.
And then they would bring it back to their farm and put it in the basement and let it get hard. And they drink it all winter.
Which sounds fantastic.
Yeah, I want some hard cider.
So it wasn't designated or built as a cider mill, but you could use it as one at the time. It wasn't made into a actual cider mill until 1940. It was converted into a retail cider production by Homer Rebb, who bought it.
His dad bought it, Charles Rebb.
And then Homer is the one that took it over from his father.
Right.
And Homer actually built the cider press that was used there until, what did Cindy say?
8 years ago?
Yeah, until 8 years ago.
So about 8 years ago.
From 1940 until 2012-ish. That original Homer Rebb's press was being used there.
They still have it there, too. They still have it.
So cool. And Homer, there's some stories about Homer we're going to talk about in a little bit. Margaret's going to get into that. Mm-hmm. So that's the basic, the very first history of where it came from, and then when it got turned into a cider mill. I think I'm going to pass it off to Margaret from here to see what happened next.
All right, so Cindy said that in 1996, her and her husband bought the press with their son and his wife at the time. And Greg and Tina, which are Cindy's son and his wife, they ended up having 6 children, and they all worked at the press. Like, even when I was there, the kids worked there. And I mean, like, they all, like, Cindy said right now the grandkids are aged from 28 to 17, and they all basically own their own businesses. But they were all raised in the mill, like, working, and those kids worked. Like, I've worked a lot of jobs. And, you know, when you work, like, even any retail job, you know, you work with young kids and they're, like, slackers and they're there to make a paycheck and they don't really want to do anything. These kids worked harder than anybody. Like, they're the hardest working kids I ever met in my life. I was just like, oh my God.
Now we're like great-grandchildren are in there.
Yeah. So it's like, it's truly a family-run business. And that's like, it's just nice to see that, really, you know, cool. Especially when they're all so successful and, you know, they're a great family. Cindy was saying that after they bought the mill, it was they opened the mill in late August, because that's really when you get the first. You need to get apples to have a cider mill. You have to have apples to press cider, and it was the first year that they were opened. It was the end of August. It was like right after they opened. She said she was stocking a cooler, and you kind of like when you're working someplace, when somebody comes in, you kind of feel it that somebody walked in the room. And she said she felt like someone was in there, and she looked through the door, and she saw someone from the knees down, and they had like heavy wool pants on and like leather work boots. And so she like closed the door and stood up, and there was no one there.
When I think of wool pants and high boots, I think of a sailor. And I think of Captain John Burr.